Trump urges NATO nations to stop buying Russian oil. Arab nation leaders to meet and denounce Israel attack on Doha. Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. Thanks for tuning in. You're watching World Today with me, Olivia Nicholas. United States President Donald Trump issued a letter to NATO nations urging them to stop buying Russian oil and impose major sanctions on Russia to end its war in Ukraine. In a post on his Truth Social platform, Trump also suggested NATO consider slapping tariffs of 50% to 100% on China as a way to help end Russia's war in Ukraine. Trump has repeatedly threatened Russia with additional sanctions, including last weekend after the Kremlin unleashed its biggest ever aerial barrage against Ukraine as a way to hit at revenue Moscow needs for its grinding war. He further stated that if the 32-member alliance follows his advice, the conflict will conclude quickly. The president has imposed an additional 25% tariff on Indian goods, citing its continued imports of Russian oil. Trump has been under pressure for some in his own party to increase sanctions on Russia after his efforts at diplomacy stalled. Meanwhile, Russia has stepped up aggression, including this week when multiple Russian drones entered the airspace of NATO member Poland. U.S. President Donald Trump's top diplomat Marco Rubio set off for Israel to discuss the impact of Israel's strike on Hamas leaders in Qatar on Israel's war in Gaza. Rubio said Israel attempted to kill the political leaders of Hamas with an airstrike in what U.S. officials described as a unilateral escalation that did not serve American or Israeli interests.
There are still 48 hostages that deserve to be released immediately, all at once. And there is still the hard work ahead of, once this ends, of rebuilding Gaza in a way that provides people a quality of life that they all want. And who's going to do that? Who's going to pay for it? Who's going to be in charge of it? So all that work's still there to be done. All that still needs to be dealt with.
Rubio headed to Israel amid tensions with fellow U.S. allies in the Middle East over Israel's strike on Hamas leaders in Qatar and expansion of settlements in the occupied West Bank. After Israel, Rubio is due to join Trump's planned visit to Britain next week. Qatar has decided to host a summit of Arab and Muslim leaders to denounce Israel's attack on Hamas officials in Doha and to show solidarity with the Gulf state. Foreign Ministry spokesman Majid al-Ansari said Monday's meeting would consider resolution on the Israeli attack on the state of Qatar to be drafted today at a ministerial meeting. He stressed that the summit reflects broad Arab and Islamic solidarity with the state of Qatar in the face of Israel's cowardly aggression and the categorical rejection of Israel's state terrorism. Among the leaders attending will be Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian and Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammad Shia al-Sudani. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan will also be in Doha, but his presence at the meeting is yet to be confirmed. The Israeli attack on Doha drew widespread international condemnation, including from Gulf monarchies allied with the U.S., Israel's main backer. Qatar, which hosts the largest U.S. base in the region, plays a mediation role in the Gaza war alongside the U.S. and Egypt. According to analysts, the summit is meant to send Israel a clear signal that its aggression cannot be normalized. Ukraine said it needs at least $120 billion next year to fight Russia's invasion and will need a similar amount to maintain its military even if the war ended. Ukraine spends around a third of its entire economic output on defense and relies on tens of billions of dollars of financial assistance from its Western allies to keep its economy afloat. Ukraine's defense minister Denis Shmyhal said his country risks losing more land to Russia if it continues to be outspent on the battlefield. He suggested confiscating Russian assets frozen in the West to pay for the defense spending, saying that Ukrainians are already shouldering a significant tax burden after 3.5 years of war. EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen on Wednesday proposed using frozen Russian assets to fund a reparations loan for Ukraine, but said the 27-member bloc would not seize the assets themselves. Russia, meanwhile, said any attempt to seize its assets amounts to theft and will incur consequences. Romania became the latest NATO member state to report a drone incursion into its airspace after Poland denounced the intrusion of Russian drones into its airspace earlier this week. Romania has had several drone fragments crash on its soil since Moscow invaded Ukraine, especially as Russia has stepped up attacks on Ukrainian ports. A defense ministry statement said the country scrambled 2 F-16 fighter jets to monitor the situation following strikes on Ukraine. It said the jets detected a drone in national airspace and tracked it until it disappeared from the radar near the village of Chilea Vice. The ministry noted that the drone did not fly over populated areas and did not pose an imminent threat to the safety of the population. It added teams were ready to be deployed to begin searching for possible debris from the aerial vehicle. Poland and its fellow NATO countries have been on their guard since Warsaw said nearly 20 Russian drones entered its airspace overnight from Tuesday to Wednesday. While Russia denies targeting Poland, several European countries, including France, Germany and Sweden, have stepped up their support for defending Polish airspace in response. Venezuela hit out at the U.S. for allegedly seizing a fishing boat for 8 hours in its exclusive economic zone as the U.S. military patrols the Caribbean to target drug cartels. Foreign Minister Vian Gill said the vessel carrying 9 tuna fishermen was illegally detained by the USS Jason Dunham destroyer. He said the warship deployed 18 armed agents who boarded and occupied the small boat for 8 hours, calling the incident a direct provocation through the illegal use of excessive military means. He charged that those who ordered the seizure are looking for an incident to justify escalating war in the Caribbean with the aim to regime change in Caucasus. Gill demanded the U.S. to immediately cease the actions that endangered security and peace in the area. Tensions between the two countries have soared in recent weeks after Washington ordered the biggest naval buildup in the Caribbean in years. U.S. President Donald Trump has called for targeting Venezuelan drug traffickers and the operation, stepping up pressure on President Nicolas Maduro. The U.S. accuses the leftist leader of heading a cocaine trafficking cartel and recently doubled its bounty for its capture to $50 million. The suspected gang attack on a pool hall in Ecuador overnight left 7 dead and 4 wounded. The gunmen, most of them masked, opening fire as people play billiards in Santo Domingo. Police said this violent incident stems from a territorial dispute between organized crime groups and organized armed groups. Ecuador is a point of departure for cocaine shipments to the United States and Europe and a hub for criminal groups involved in extortion and contract killings. Some of them linked to cartels based in Mexico, Colombia or Albania. In August, 7 people were killed in a pool hall in the same city. Ecuador recorded more than 4,600 homicides in the first half of the year, a 47% increase from the same period of 2024. In June, President Daniel Noboa's government captured the country's top gang leader, who was extradited the following month to the United States to face drug and arms trafficking charges. Coming up, global sumo flotilla set sail to deliver vital supplies to Gaza. Three boats belonging to the international aid initiative Global Summit Flotilla set sail for Tunisia de Bizerte port to deliver vital supplies to Gaza and break Israel's naval blockade. Activists aboard a vessel called Marinette waved as they sailed off. Another set of activists carried the flag of Algeria and the flag of Poland as they departed. Organizers said more boats are expected to depart from Tunisia, with a delay attributed to poor weather and logistical challenges. Global Summit Flotilla said on Wednesday that one of its boats was attacked by a drone at a Tunisian port, the second such strike in 2 days. Organizers described the attacks as deliberate attempts by Israel to disrupt the mission. The Global Sumud Flotilla is a coordinated, non-violent fleet of mostly small vessels sailing from ports across the Mediterranean to break the Israeli occupation's illegal siege in Gaza. The mission includes hundreds of activists from over 40 countries, including Swedish activist Greta Thunberg and Portuguese left-wing politician Mariana Mortágua. Anti-immigration Unite the Kingdom protesters faced off against police in central London. Police made 25 arrests after up to 150,000 people massed for one of the largest ever far-right protests in Britain, organised by activist Tommy Robinson. Police said Robinson's Unite the Kingdom march was attended by around 110,000 people who were kept apart from a stand-up to racism counter-protest nearby attended by around 5,000. Police stated that 26 officers were injured after facing unacceptable violence while trying to control the crowds, many draped in English and British flags, during several tense hours on the rally's fringes. London's Metropolitan Police said officers had to intervene in multiple locations to stop United the Kingdom protesters trying to access sterile areas between the two protests, breach police cordons or get to opposing groups. A number of officers had been assaulted and additional officers had been deployed with protective equipment supported by police horses, the force added in a statement issued while the march was still underway. Thousands of people gathered in front of Berlin's landmark Brandenburg Gate demanding an end to the genocide in Gaza as well as a halt to arms deliveries to Ukraine. According to People figures, around 12,000 people joined the rally in the center of the German capital, condemning Israel's offensive in the besieged Palestinian territory. But the far-left BSW party, which had called the demonstration, estimated turnout at 20,000 people, making it one of the largest pro-Palestinian rallies in Germany in recent months. During the rally, the party also touched on the war in Ukraine, demanding that Berlin commits to peace negotiations both in West Asia and Ukraine. Germany has made support for Israel a cornerstone of its foreign policy. However, Berlin has grown increasingly critical of the Israeli campaign in Gaza and its impact on Palestinian civilians in recent months as the humanitarian situation has worsened, in the UN declaring famine in parts of the coastal territory. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz had announced a partial arms embargo in August, saying that his country would halt the export of military equipment that could be used in the Gaza Strip. An explosion gutted a bar in Madrid, injuring at least 25 people, 3 of them seriously wounded. Spanish authorities have ruled out more victims being trapped under the rubble. Madrid Emergency Services said firefighters were clearing debris at the premises in the capital's Vallecas neighborhood. It added due to the explosion, the bar ceiling was partially collapsed and bricks were strewn on the ground. Doors had been ripped off via hinges, with shards of glass shattered on the road outside. The Civil Protection and Medical Services said sniffer dogs and drones were deployed to support the response. Spanish media reported that a gas leak triggered the blast. However, Inmaculada Sanz, an official responsible for security and emergencies at Madrid Town Hall, said it was too early to venture and determine the cause of the incident. She also noted that the residents of 9 homes that formed part of the destabilized building will have to be rehoused for at least a few days. Still to come in sports, Al Hilal held to a frustrating draw against Al Qadiyah. Last season's runners-up Al Hilal were held to a 2-2 draw at home to Al Qadiyah in the Saudi Pro League on Saturday. The visitors took the lead just 6 minutes in through Ghana's Christopher Bonsuba.
4 goals and 11 assists.
Despite Bonsu's strike being the only shot on target in the first half, they led 1-0 at half-time. Darwin Núñez then drew Al Hilal level 4 minutes after the restart with his first goal in the competitive fixture since joining the Riyadh outfit. Just a minute later, however, Mexican international Julian Quinones put Alcancia ahead again before a 73rd minute penalty from Ruben Neves restored parity. The result put Alcancia third in the table, one spot above Simon Ingazi side on goal difference after 2 matches played to start the new season. Despite efforts to find a winner, both teams settled for a point each and both clubs now have 4 points from 2 matches, while Al Khalij tops the table with 6 points following the victory over Al Fihar. Ingazi and Nunes are part of the revamp project for Al Hilal to wrestle back to the title from rivals Al Ittihad after they were pipped to the title last season in a tight race. Germany reached the Davis Cup Final 8 with a 4-out rout of Japan after 2 days of play in Tokyo on Friday and Saturday. After Germany took a 2-0 lead on Friday, the victory was completed when Kevin Krawitz and Tim Woods saved 3 set points in the second set to beat Japan's Yosuke Watanuki and Takeru Yuzuki 6-3, 7-6 in the doubles. The Japanese pair dug deep, saving 4 match points in a tie break before conceding to the 3-time champions. Justin Engel then sealed the deal by making it 4-0 after beating Rei Sakamoto 6-3, 6-7, 10-7. Last year's semi-finalist Germany were the first team to enter the final 8 through the qualifiers, joining host Italy in the culminating round set for November in Bologna. They were followed suit by Argentina, who took an unassailable 3-0 lead against the Netherlands in Groningen. It leaves 28 times champion Australia, who was runners-up in 2022 and 2023 and semi-finalists last year, and needing to win both the reverse singles and the doubles on Sunday. Germany has won the Davis Cup title on 3 occasions in 1988, 1989 and 1993 and currently lies in 7th place on the all-time list of champions. Title contender Sebastian Ogier led Toyota teammate and World Championship leader Alfyn Evans into the final day of Rally Chile on Saturday. The 8-time world champion in his 200th WRC start will carry a 6.3-second advantage over the Welshman into Sunday's remaining 4 stages after a strong comeback on Saturday afternoon. Ogier won all 3 of Saturday's late loop of forest stages in changing conditions, with drier weather following morning rain. The Frenchman, winner of the previous round in Paraguay last month, exclaimed that it is going to be intense until the end. Hyundai's Adrian Formark was in 3rd place after leading overnight and 26.8 seconds behind Ogier. Teammate and defending champion Thierry Neuville was 4th with Toyota's Sami Pajari 5th and title contender Kalle Rovanperä 6th. The afternoon saw both Formark and Neuville fall further and further away from the rally lead, ending behind the leading GR Yaris. The first casualty of the day was Chilean driver Alberto Heller, who stopped just 800 meters into the first stage, while Josh M. Salian made it to the 3.1 kilometers mark before his Puma also ground to a halt with a failed fuel pump. Ogier has 9 points behind Evans in the standings with 3 rounds remaining after Chile. Aprilia's Marco Bezzecchi won Saturday's sprint at the San Marino Grand Prix after championships leader Marc Marquez crashed out of the lead on Ducati's home turf as the Spaniard failed to finish on the podium for the first time in sprints this season. An aggressive Marquez had elbowed his way through from 4th on the grid before overtaking Polisetta Bezzecchi halfway through the sprint to take the lead. But 6-time champion Marquez, who had won 14 sprints this season, made a rare mistake in the final sector to crash out of the lead, gifting Bezzecchi his first sprint victory since the 2023 Dutch Grand Prix. Marc's brother Alex Marquez of Gresini Racing finished second to reduce the gap in the championship to 173 points and keep alive his slim title hopes, while VR46 Racing's Fabio Di Gianantonio edged teammate Franco Morbidelli to take 3rd. Marc stayed on Bezzecchi's rear wheel, and when the Italian made a mistake on lap 6, it opened the door for the Spaniard, who capitalized to take the lead. But just moments after seizing control, it was Marc who lost it. He misjudged a corner and suddenly the Spaniard was sliding across the gravel as his red bike cartwheeled and hit the wall, the paddock watching on in disbelief. It was the first time Mark had crashed in a sprint this season, ending a streak of 15 podiums, which included 14 wins and 1 silver medal. Denmark's Jonas Vingegaard set himself up to win the 2025 Vuelta a España when he increased his overall lead with a victory on Saturday's penultimate stage, leaving his closest rival Joao Almeida in his wake in the final kilometre. Vingegaard, 2 times Tour de France winner and the Vuelta runner-up in 2023, won his 3rd stage of this year's race in style, validating his pre-race favourite's tag. After almost 3 weeks of racing, the Vuelta and Stage 20's 165.6 km ride from Robledo del Chavela all came down to the last grueling kilometres to the summit finish at Bola del Mundo. Portugal's Almeida began the day 44 seconds behind the Dane but did not have the legs to challenge and trailed in 5th on the stage, 22 seconds behind Vingegaard, who holds a 1 minute 16-second lead going into Sunday's final stage to Madrid. Vingegaard's teammate and 2023 winner Sepp Kuss was second on the stage, 11 seconds behind the winner, with Australian Jai Hindley in 3rd. After a large early breakaway was whittled down to 2 men, Mikel Landa and Julio Chicon were caught with 3 kilometres remaining and the rail race began, with the main riders battling not only for the stage win but for ultimate glory. 5 riders were out in front, the top 4 overall along with Kuss, and with the focus on Almeida. Vingegaard seized his chance and nobody could keep pace with the 28-year-old Dane. Kick back and relax with our selection of offbeat stories coming up right after this. A towering papier-mâché T-Rex has taken over an abandoned newsstand in Brooklyn, transformed into a whimsical dinosaur bodega art installation at the Grand Army Plaza subway station. Artist Sarah Cassidy, who built the 7-foot figure with PVC piping, chicken wire and papier-mâché, said the project stretched her beyond her usual 2-dimensional art. Working with fellow artist Akiva Leffert, the pair filled the space with tongue-in-cheek dinosaur-themed products such as 3-ply meteor particle filter disposable snout mask and newspaper headlines like Small Arm Dealer with its front page showing a handcuffed T-Rex. Cassidy said the project is about more than dinosaurs, as the installation is part of the Metropolitan Transportation Authority's Vacant Unit Activation Program, which turns unused spaces into art.
I hope that they take away a feeling of whimsy, which I think is working. And honestly, the greatest achievement of this whole project was bringing awareness to the MTA's program. So the Vacant Unit Activation Program, very bureaucratic name for absolutely the best possible programming that they could be putting in the subway.
From Ziggy Stardust costumes to handwritten lyrics, a new centre showcasing tens of thousands of objects spanning the career of pioneering late British musician David Bowie is opening its doors to the public in London. The David Bowie Centre at London's V&A East Storehouse features some 90,000 items from the music star's archive, which fans, students or researchers can view on appointment. These include his costumes and shoes, instruments, notebooks, as well as unfinished projects, including a musical Bowie was working on towards the end of his life.
The Spectator was a musical that Bowie was working on towards the end of his life. It was about 18th century London, following several real-life characters from that society and that scene. He was obviously interested in the cultural scene, the society at the time, the politics. We know that he had made notes on post-its and kind of ideas for a script, but it hadn't gone much further than that. And we can only speculate as to what final idea he had for that project.
The centre also includes a display of 200 items looking at Bowie's life and creativity. The extensive archive includes around 70,000 photographs, some 400 costumes and 150 instruments, as well as personal items. At Egypt's Beit Yakan, a restored 19th century mansion in Cairo's historic Al-Dab Al-Amah district, local youths took part in traditional crafts workshops aimed at reviving the country's artisanal heritage. The summer school program, launched 3 years ago in partnership with Jamil House of Traditional Arts, builds on a decade of workshops that Beit Yakan has been offering to residents of Al-Dab Al-Amah. This year's edition hosted around 100 participants from the neighborhood, offering free lessons in wood inlay, calligraphy, copper carving and other design techniques passed down through generations. For many of the young attendees, the experience was both creative and personal.
كنت بحب اجي كل اجازه ان انا اجي اتعلم حاجه هنا فكنت بتعلم خط بتعلم حفر على خشب نحاس فالسنه دي اتعلمت التطعيم على الخشب كانت تجربه جميله وممتعه.
Owner of Beit Yakan, Olai said, expressed hope that the program would inspire local youths to engage with the cultural legacy of their own neighborhood, home to some of Cairo's richest Islamic art and monuments. At Pop Mart's store inside the Oculus World Trade Center, shoppers browse rows of blind boxes, each hiding a mystery character. Among those in high demand is Crybaby, a variety of teary-eyed figures with oversized drops rolling down its cheeks that has quickly become one of the company's top-selling collectibles.
Yeah, actually, I was looking for a Crybaby because I think this could be the next trend, besides from Labubu. And as I was already slow for Labubu, I thought maybe I catch the next trend earlier. And as I know that this is popular in Japan, so I thought this could be a good catch in the US next.
Pop Mart's head of IP licensing for the Americas, Emily Bro, said Crybaby's appeal lies in its message, which conveys that it is okay to cry sometimes, and it is something that is very relevant nowadays. In his latest half-year results, Pop Mart said Crybaby revenue rose nearly 249% year-on-year to 1.22 billion yuan, joining top performers such as the Monsters, Labubu, Molly and Skull Panda.
Sambutan Hari Malaysia 2025 peringkat kebangsaan 16 September 2025 Selasa bermula pukul 8.30 malam bertempat di Pusat Konvensyen PICCA at Butterworth Arena, Pulau Pinang. Pelbagai persembahan menarik turut diadakan. Semarakkan Sambutan Hari Malaysia 2025. Malaysia Madani, Rakyat Disantuni. Untuk maklumat lanjut, layari www.merdeka360.my.
That wraps up World Today this time around. In our top story, Trump urges NATO nations to stop buying Russian oil. For business news updates, do join us tonight at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 or saluran Berita RTM. Till then, I'm Olivia Nicholas, Malaysia Madani, Rakyat, Disantuni. Have a good afternoon.